All right. Repo Man 64. Large that. And I'm here. Let me see where my audio's at. It looks like it's fine. Let me check it. That, and yes, okay, we're good with audio. So we're running out of mathematical time as we understand it. The Bible's right. God has the date set. It's always been set from before he ever created anything. He knew the exact moment he'd come back. He told us, he said, I'll be back after 6,000 years. He'll be back um, to set up his millennial kingdom after 2,000 years after Jesus. He told us generation was 70 to 80 years. And we see Israel become a nation in 1948. So all of this math is converging, and we've actually passed dates that we said, it's got to be this date. But it's not because God's delaying or it's because we're misunderstanding. We haven't quite grasped it. And then on top of that, to couple that, you have to remember that God can't let Satan know. There's a flash, a moment where it appears from what we read in the Bible that Satan could interfere. And God's not going to allow that. So therefore, God's not going to say the exact moment. We do not know the day or the hour. We just see the earthquakes upticking. We see Israel is surrounded. We see they're hearing trumpets in the air all over the place, almost like they're warming up. When I hear the trumpets in recordings, it literally sounds like a band that's warming up for practice. It's just random and stuff. So I know that Jesus is as excited about this day, if not more, because he's aware of it. We're waiting for a date that we don't know. He's waiting for a date that he does know. And so he's just as excited, if not more, than we are for this moment to happen. And while we don't stack up and we might think, oh, I'm going to show up in heaven and put my head down because of all the things I've done, that's not what's going to happen. When you show up, you have the complete covering of Christ. You can't even be seen for what you were here. You will be seen for the covering you have of the blood of Christ. And that's why it's so important to lean on Christ and trust in Christ alone, that he is the only way to heaven and there is no other way. And so that's where we stand. And it doesn't matter what channel you watch, the basic principle of each channel and what they're stating is very simple, that Jesus is the only way. And the channels that are super huge telling you, if you go get baptized, come to our church and join up and you become the body of believers because you're going to do this, this, and this. And we're going to set your life straight. And then you can present yourself to God. And that's just not how it works. And like I said in the last video, and I've been saying this for a while, 153 million scares people because they're trying to hedge their bet. But I promise you, if you just walk around all day long amongst hundreds of people, hold a sign and say, what happens to the guy that stands on the street corner? The end is near. The end is almost here. They avoid him. They walk around him. I walk up to them. I walk up to them and ask them because I'm curious as to what they might know. Because God, some people don't react very well to insight. It really affects them and they fall right out of society, just like John the Baptist. And not John, yeah, John the Baptist. What did he do? He wasn't a part of society. He lived out like a crazy man. They said he ate locusts and honey and he, knowing forehand that he was going to be the one that herald heralded in Jesus coming into this world, that he would be the one to baptize him. And when it finally happened, he said, "I can't baptize you. I can't even tie your shoes." He knew what his purpose was. And once a lot of us, once you recognize that purpose, uh, some people, like the guy standing there with the sign, he's like, there is nothing else. This is the only thing. I've got to warn people. And so that does happen. And I don't think if you read the Bible and said John the Baptist knew what was going to happen in advance and he was a multi-billionaire because he had insight and he had no, the guy was eating locusts and honey. I mean, no, that's not what would happen. So, like I said, go out into public. Don't avoid the guy holding the sign. Go ask him, and you'll find that he's very knowledgeable. And the street preachers, you see me sometimes when I see them out there street preaching, I will stop and interview them um, because I want to know where their heart is. And sometimes, most of the time, they're right on cue with Jesus Christ, and it's so basic. That's what gets me about most people. And I work with them, and I know hundreds of people, and it's so rare to find somebody that says, "Oh, I don't know, I'm a sinner, but I'm covered in the blood of Christ. He came here, he died on a cross, he rose after 3 days, and he paid for my sins. Why did he do it? I don't know. Yeah, but then what did you do? Nothing. I mean, he did it all. There's nothing. Yeah, but you got to maintain that, right? No, he did it all. It's over with. And that's the hardest thing to teach somebody because they will not grasp that concept. And that's why I'm saying that the entire body is made up of the bride, the head. We're there with Jesus as the head, the leaders, the kings. And then the rest of the body shows up and they will die here on earth and they will show up in heaven and they will be gathered. We're seen in First Thessalonians. They're seen in Second Thessalonians. We're seen in Revelation 5:11. They're seen in Revelation 7 as the seventh seal, six seals being opened. They're going to heaven. They will be servants in heaven. It's not going to be like somebody's whipping them and they have to. No, they're going to absolutely love what they do in heaven. But they thought that there was something else. Elijah and Elisha. We see this time and time again in the Bible. Elijah and Elisha. Elisha was right there, right there. He was right there. He was right there with Elijah, and he just wouldn't grasp what was happening. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold your tongue. I don't want to hear anymore about this rapture thing. I'm following this guy, and that's all I need. All I need is to follow Elijah, and I'm good. I'm golden. I'm right there. And he was, and he did. He saw it happen. Now, don't forget, there was 50 prophets that were out there that saw it also happen. What did they do? Well, let's go find his body. I'm sure God carried him up. We saw that happen, but he must have dropped him on a mountain somewhere. So there's going to be a group of people that see the rapture that have no clue what just happened. They will be searching for us like we were dropped on a mountain somewhere, maybe out in the middle of the ocean. They're going to try to find us. But Elisha knew. He's like, there's really no reason to go look for him. He's not here. He's in heaven. No, 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 no. We have to go find Elijah. All right, go. If you want to, go. And they come back. We couldn't find him. He's like, duh. You can't find him. He's in heaven. So there's going to be a group of people that if you said to them, and everybody that knows me, and I mean everybody that knows me knows the phrase, if you see me, go. And they don't understand the concept of that. And I know that Elisha told Elisha because it says so in the Bible. If you see me go, then you will receive a double portion. So always keep that in mind. And bottom of the barrel, brass tacks, what you have to tell somebody is if you see me go, not kneel down before me and accept the Lord. That would be nice. I just, I can't imagine you walking up to a stranger at the mall and saying, kneel down. And, I just can't see that. But I can see you saying, I just listened to this crazy guy on YouTube and all the earthquakes that are going on and Israel at war and all this. He's saying, if you see me go, this event, and you can play into it like that to get people to engage you. You want them to engage. And I do it all the time. I really thought about making a t-shirt, although I didn't think we'd be here now. And even every day that I wake up, I am actually surprised that we're still here. And so because of that, I've put off a lot of things, and I need to go out and make that T-shirt that says on it, "If you see me go," and quote the verse where Elisha said that, "If you see me go," and they'll know that the moment that this great disappearance happens, that's where the great delusion comes. That's where it comes in, and that's what you need to prepare people for on that day. So let me get into the pictures right here. Oh, I had this. I don't know why this one's up first, but I had this one to show that, in fact, when um, Noah was here, all of these people from Enos were still alive. So when Lamech had Noah, Lamech, all of those people, every single person that had been born previously was still alive. Adam was still alive, all of them. So the first thing we do when we think of a cataclysmic event is we start to store up. It's kind of in our nature. A lot of people who think they're going to be here, you see these prepper channels are absolutely huge, 200,000 subscribers, a million subscribers. They are doing what they think is accurate. They would never take there's a bomb coming. They will run under. We will go out and stare at the bomb, going, Jesus, I trust you. I know that you're coming, and you're not going to let this happen. And at that moment, the rapture would occur. So there's a faith that comes along with what we are. Know what you are. You are a bride of Christ. When you get to heaven, you will not be shining shoes and opening doors. Jesus is not has not done all this so that you can go to heaven and shine shoes and open doors. You will be kings. You will get a rod of iron. You will get a mansion, not because of your glory. Nothing you've ever done deserves that, because of what he did. And somehow, some way, in the midst of 8 billion people, there was a group of people who said, I'm going to put my entire faith and trust in the blood of Christ alone and nothing else. And I will do things, but they will not count towards anything that Jesus has done. They might count towards crowns, but they will not count towards anything that will attribute to my salvation. Let me get my picture up here out of the way. Okay. So you all know I start the year on the day equalized. This is a verse found in Enoch. Jesus also said, Are there not 12 hours in the day? And when I apply what Jesus said to the fact that Lazarus died, and I use March 16th, which is the day of equal parts, you can go 600 years in the future. You can go all the way. Some people might actually have a program that goes further back than me. We know that they changed it in 1582 by 10 days, but it's still this. It doesn't matter what day you call it. You can call it any day you want, but there's a day, uh, the day just prior to Nissan 1, where there are, in fact, 12 hours a day. Jesus said, Are there not 12 hours a day? Enoch said, and again, these writings, they were on the boat. There was seeds on the boat. They had 120 years to prepare. I read in an extra biblical book that uh, Noah actually began building the boat. He got everything prepared, just like right now in Israel, the third temple, they have all the blocks ready to go. All they have to do is add water to the cement to bind all the blocks together. That's all they have to do. Everything is ready. They've got the show bread, they've got the tables, they showed you an ark stating that it was a replica. They found that ark. That guy, I forget his name now, found that ark under where Jesus was crucified. That blood had to go down. The earthquake had to happen to crack that rock to make his blood go down and land on the mercy seat. So in that ark was all of this stuff required to start life over again. And uh, Enoch is a picture of the bride. He leaves before the flood. Noah is a picture of the tribulation saint. God loves him. God carries him through. God protects him in the ark, which is Jesus, pitched within and without. And inside that ark is everything he needs to start a new life. And he had to, he started building that ark when his father, Lamech, died at the age of 777, which was 5 years before the flood. He didn't spend 120 years building an ark. He spent 120 years warning everybody. 7 years prior, 5 years prior, sorry, to the flood is when he began to build that ark. You can find this in several books, the book of Jubilees, the book of Enoch, and the legend of the Jews. You can read about all of this stuff. Noah was actually an albino. His eyes were so blue, they said that it lit up a room. And so he was very unique. And as a matter of fact, his father was so concerned, Lamech was so concerned about how Noah looked that he went to his father, Methuselah, and said, "What's going on here?" And so he said, "God, you've named him because he will carry and all the names meant something. And then we know that Methuselah's name means his death shall bring. And so Methuselah, being his grandfather, died 7 days. The day that God told Noah to get into the ark is the day that Methuselah died. I would imagine that since Methuselah, and again in these extra biblical books, Methuselah told God, please don't let me die amongst the wicked. I know I'm not getting on that ark. I'm 969 years old. Please take me before. And God did. God took him 7 days before. And on that day, I believe that Noah already had a grave ready for him and buried him. And then Noah went into the ark. And again, you can read all this. Um, if it's in extra biblical books, it must agree, or at the very least, not disagree with the Bible. So when Jesus said, "Are there not 12 hours in a day?" it matches this on that day. And you see some very large Enoch channels that will state um, that the day of the equalize, as they understand it, means the equinox. But that's the day of equal night. We are not children of the night. We are children of the day. The equal lux, the day of equal parts in Israel, the day equalized is March 16th, and it always is. It never changes, ever. The equinox moves around by 6 hours every year. And it bumps from the 19th to the 20th to the 21st, and then bounces back. It's all over the place. It is not the day that Jesus was talking about. Are there not 12 hours in a day? The day Jesus was talking, there is not 12 hours in a day on the equinox. And when you use the equinox, it puts the day Jesus was conceived on December the 29th, which literally means nothing. God had his hand in December the 25th. He had his hand in that. He wasn't going to allow us to celebrate the day Jesus left heaven to enter the womb of Mary under the Immaculate Conception, a different day. He was going to do that on December the 25th, which, by the way, is the day we call Christmas. And is obviously, for me, very annoying when people get in there and say, Christmas is a pagan holiday. And I'm like, next thing we're going to do is say that the rainbow's bad, right? Even though God had it first, because Satan's trying to take it over, we'll just cancel the whole thing. And I'm just not going to ever agree with that. Go buy yourself a Christmas tree, buy each other presents, and really enjoy the day. And remember what day it is. It's the day Jesus came. And if you do the math, starting the year on March 16th and you count it out, March 25th, I'm sorry, December 25th will be the day that Jesus left heaven, his rightful place in heaven, came down here to begin the process, the 33 and a half year process of paying for the sins of mankind. And then he was born on tabernacles. Comes to tabernacle with us. I mean, everybody knows there are people who are trying to do math to September the 11th, which is actually the first day of creation. Jesus was not created, he was the creator. So he was not born on September the 11th. He was born on September the 30th. If you count from Christmas, 280 days to the very day. You'll see the night of the 29th is when Jesus was born. Now, Enoch says, on the day that is equalized with the night, there's only one day like that in the springtime. There's one in fall, which happened on September the what is it, 26th, and then there's one in the springtime, happens on March 16th. And when you compile this with what Jesus said in the Bible, are there not 12 hours a day? We find out that Lazarus, in fact, died on that day. And when I put the math in there, I put the exact math. He had a meal. He had a meal with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And the Bible says it was 6 days before the cross. It also says that they were trying to find Lazarus to kill him. Was it a year later? Was it a month later? No, Lazarus would have done all that damage within a month. No, they wanted to find him right away. And the meal happened very shortly after Lazarus um, was raised, very shortly after. And 6 days, they had that meal with Jesus. And they confused that meal with the meal they had with the Pharisee who had uh, the skin problem. I'm going to forget the name of that skin problem now. Yes, I will forget the name of that skin problem. But he healed this Pharisee, and on that day was actually at nightfall. 5 days, making it 4 days prior to the cross. 4 days had to be. He was anointed on his head. That had to be a different meal. And we went through that. Now, this is where Jesus says in John 11, what is it? 8, Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours a day? He just randomly says this out of Lazarus being sick and all of this stuff. He just randomly says this. It's because he's giving us a clue. It's a clue that really nobody picked up on, but it is a clue. And the reason he said this out of nowhere was because this is the day Lazarus died, the day that there are day of equal parts, March 16th. The earthquakes above 5.0 have been going nuts. I've been watching this. Mid-Atlantic Ridge has lit up with several 5.0s. It's been quite crazy. So we are coming along on the day. I'm going to give you my last possible date of the rapture. However, in my understanding and looking at dates, um, somebody else might find something that says, hey, it might be this or it might be that. And so I'm not saying thus saith the Lord, but it is a date according to the timeline that I will be very interested in watching. And it's not too far off from now. I'll give it to you here in a moment. This is the timeline I built um, 6 years ago. And it was very difficult because I continued to try to apply the Hebrew calendar of 364 days to the Gregorian. And then I realized that I can't do it. I have to apply the Gregorian calendar to the Hebrew calendar. So I made another timeline. I don't know how long it's been now. Sister Sandy did it. She would know exactly, but I'm guessing it's been about a year, 6 months, something like that now. But I like this timeline because you get to go in, see all the events that took place, and see the time distances. And no, it has nothing to do with the sliver moon or the full moon, although um, God is using it. And why do I say that? I know He's using it, especially now, because this year Hanukkah lines up with Christmas Day. Hanukkah is actually here on Kislev 24. Hanukkah begins, the Festival of Lights, 8 days on Kislev 24. It always begins on December the 8th. But this year, very unique year, this won't happen again. I think I looked it up. It was 2030 the next time it happens, which in and of itself is unique. But Kislev 24, December the 28th this year will land on Christmas. This is the day that Mary actually conceived mathematically 40 weeks exactly from September the 29th at nightfall is when Jesus is born. And so that's exactly 40 weeks. But Tevet 10 would be Tevet 10 for me. But I know God is using this because I asked Spinebreaker. Kevin, to look back at 4 and 3 BC to tell me if Hanukkah lined up on Christmas like it does this year. And he said, in fact, in 4 BC it does. 4 BC is 3 BC because there's no 0 year. So that's more and more proof that God is, in fact, going to bring the Jews to jealousy by using their calendar and this calendar. Because this year, again, December the 25th is when they will call Hanukkah. They are running behind by about 17 days. Currently, next year, I think they start the year off behind 14 days. And then, of course, by the time you get to September, they'll be off by, well, it would be 10 days short of that because they follow the moon. So it would be 5 days every 6 months. So 10 days every year they would be off. So if they were off by 14, they'll only be off by 4 days. Last year in 2023, all of these dates lined up perfectly. So when Israel was attacked here on October the 7th, again, this is me applying the Hebrew calendar to the Gregorian, so it was never 100% accurate. I was off by a day. I've got it down to the minute now. The connection between the 2 days. What I don't have is when to start. Do I start at midnight? When we say midnight starts a new day, do I start at sunset in Israel? I don't know. I don't know which one to start from, as to which to use. So, and there are 365 and a quarter days as the Earth goes around the sun, pointed at that distant star. There are 364, but to correct or keep high noon, which currently I think is 11:22 in the morning is high noon. To keep high noon, you have to continue to turn the Earth back to the sun to keep high noon. In other words, both calendars are accurate. Both of them are accurate. And so when you do that, you wind up that Israel was in fact attacked on October the 7th. And somehow this year, Tabernacles did not end on October the 7th, the 8th. It ended later because of their moon that they used. So where are we at now? And whoops, keep thinking I can double click on it like I do on my phone. Let me move this up a little bit more. There. All right, where are we at right now? I don't even have my watch on. I left it in there charging. Let's see, it's the 17th. Where are we at on the timeline now as far as November the 17th? We are right here, November the 17th. Um, my outside date, and of course the rapture could occur at any moment, but my outside date is here, November the 30th. Let me change timelines because this one doesn't have the minutes on there, the hours and the minutes of the difference between the two timelines. Let's see here, a little bit more. Okay, there. Now, the flood, the anniversary of the flood never changes. Just like your birthday never changes. It's always on a day. You don't count your birthday using the moon or anything. Well, these events that took place, you don't use the moon. Again, God still is using the moon because of the fact that Hanukkah, which is on December the 7th, lands over here on Christmas, December the 8th. So what I did, asked Sister Sandy to do this. It was a lot of work, as it always is when I ask her to help me out. Kislev 24 is always December the 8th. It's not December the 7th. But if you count from midnight, it becomes December the 8th. And 17 hours and 44 minutes because of that extra 4 minutes a day. It's actually slightly under 4 minutes. I think this is where we're getting the extra time from. But 17 hours after December the 7th, it is December the 8th. Now, this Tevet 1 is when Adam was removed from the garden. Extra biblical. You will see that Adam was removed from the garden because it looks as though God wanted to spend Hanukkah with him. So a very high watch date is not down here, though. It's up here 1 week earlier on November the 30th. 1 week earlier on November the 30th, prior to December the 7th, December the 8th with the 17 hours, December 1st with the 17 hours. So What we see is that on November the 30th, it is exactly 1,260 days, and this is the amount of time that is allotted to the two witnesses to warn. Now, I saw a video and it blew my mind, and I was like, it shocks me, and it shocks me at how the Holy Spirit eh, definitely works with so many different people. And this person said, "You aren't giving enough credit to the two witnesses." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" We kind of view them as obscure people that are kind of going around warning people. No, these two people can bring down fire from heaven. These two people can turn lakes and oceans into blood. These two people have all of these powers, and it is given to them to do what they will. God's not going to be like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? You went too far. No, they will know, just like when we go to heaven and in our new bodies, we're set free to run in the millennium. Do you think there will ever be a time in the millennium where you'll be called into God's office to say, "Yeah, I know that guy was doing a terrible thing, but you killed him. Did you have to kill him?" That's simply not going to happen. God's going to be, "Yeah, he killed him." "Yeah, but that's unfair." What are you talking about? He carries a rod of iron. That's what he does. What are you talking about? There won't be any discussion of we messed up. We won't mess up. We will be in perfect alignment and perfect will of the Father, and the two witnesses will be in perfect alignment and perfect will of the Father. So when we see the two witnesses come online, this person in this YouTube, and I don't remember, and I wish I would have taken a screenshot. It was, and whoever you are, you know who you are, said that the two witnesses will be the ones to stop everybody from anybody who tried to come up against Israel. These two witnesses will stop it. And these two witnesses will cause the new temple to be built, the temple that Satan is going to walk into to proclaim himself to be God. And these two witnesses will do this for 1,260 days, and they will die. And they will lie in the street for 84 hours, 3.5 days, and they will be taken up to heaven. And then Satan has his reign for 3.5 years. And I thought, I never really gave that much credit to the two witnesses, but wow, you're right. The two witnesses are going to be superheroes. They're going to be supermen. We view them as dressed in drab, walking around, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're dressed in holy armor and will perform things that people will be like, whoa, and then they will die. And then people will be like, oh, it's over with. There's no hope for us now. I guess we're going to follow this guy and we're going to accept the mark because the mark doesn't come out until after the first 3.5 years are over, the first 1,260 days, after the two witnesses are out of the way. When do the 144,000 go home? I don't know. It almost appears as though they're going to be here during the last 3.5 years. They're protected. Nothing's going to happen, but they're not superheroes, but they are indestructible, and they don't have to die. They've already died for the word of God. They don't have to die. They're going to be taken up at some point, but they are going to be warning about this mark, which comes out at the mid-trib. Now, my outside date, the rapture is going to occur at any second. It could happen right now. But my outside date is November the 30th to December the 1st because of that 17 hours to line the Gregorian calendar back up with the Hebrew calendar, which has 364 days in it. This one has 365 and a quarter. And this is the time difference, 4 minutes per day, to make these two match. I don't know what to do about November 30th. Do I go from 6 p.m. at dark? Do I go from midnight? I don't know. At this point, I can't quite. I just had this done and I haven't been able to wrap my mind around it. Literally lay there and sit there in my chair and do math back and forth between these events, and I can't nail it down. But I know this is true. I mean, we know this is true. We know that distant star, the Earth spins in 23 hours and 56 minutes, and then to face back to the sun, it's 24 hours. So that time, there's a 4 minute time difference to save high noon. Now, Where are we at right now? We are on the 17th. We're right here. Of course, plus 16 hours. So we're actually right. It's Kislev 4, but it's November the 18th. So that means we're back here because it's Kislev 3, November the 16th, plus 16 hours is actually November the 17th. So on one timeline, Kislev 3 is where we are. On the other one, this is where we are with the extra hours, the extra 4 minutes a day added in. That's confusing. That confuses me to death. I'm not even kidding you. when I had when I dawned on me, and you've heard me for years go, I don't know where to put that day. If I put it here, it knocks this one out of sync. If I put it there, it knocks that one out of sync. I don't know where to put it. And then I realized I had to do it by the minute. And the reason, there are several reasons why. I know that Jesus was born the night of September the 29th. I know that. So it became September the 30th. I'm like, how do I get from this date, Tishri 15, which is Tabernacles, over to this date? And then it dawns on me, the 4 minutes a day right there, which is why I think it's midnight. Honestly, I'm leaning more towards midnight because now you're looking at, you know, 1 o'clock in the afternoon here at some point on the 30th. But it's still Tishri 15 when Jesus is born. Yeah, wrap your mind around that. I'm still trying to figure that out. Now, Jesus is born on Tabernacles. Israel is attacked where? We know Israel is attacked on the last day of Tabernacles, Tishri 22. But we saw in our Gregorian time that it happened early in the morning, 6:30 a.m. on October the 7th. You see my dilemma here? I don't know how to apply that, but I do know that Tishri 22 with the 13 hours becomes October the 7th. So with that headache that I have to deal with and try to figure out, and hopefully somebody is, I'm calendrical, I'm not mathematical. Hopefully somebody in there can get in to this and see and understand sidereal days as opposed to solar days, and can help me uh, do an equation that will tell me exactly, and this almost will tell us exactly what time these events took place. If we say it was the last day of Shemini Atzeret, the last day of Tabernacles, and it's 13 hours and 40 minutes later, we know that the event happened at 6:30 in the morning. If you count back, do we wind up at sunset here on Tishri 22 or October the 6th? As being now October the 7th. You see what I'm saying? It's there. I'm right there, but I can't quite figure it out. So we are here on the 16th. I know it's the 17th, but we're here on Kislev 3, and it becomes November the 17th. We have 13 days before the prophecy, as I understand it, not as God has said it, as God has said it, not as I understand it. And as I understand it, that was supposed to be my next picture, but it wasn't. Hold on. This picture is the moon is crossing over the water in Aquarius, and Schweinbreaker has a theory that the moon will neither be a full moon nor a sliver moon. It will be a half moon, and that right there is a half moon crossing over the line of Aquarius. December the 8th is Hanukkah. That's when Hanukkah actually is. This year they will celebrate Hanukkah on December the 25th. So on December the 25th, I looked, and Saturn is actually finishing crossing that line out of the water bearer going to town, find a man bearing a picture of water, and rent the upper room. You see that in both Luke and in Mark. You will not see those words used in Matthew. Renting the upper room, just rent a room in Matthew because your room is here on earth. Jesus is coming here to you right now. We're going to Jesus, and in Matthew, Jesus is coming to them to rule and reign for 1,000 years. So Saturn crossing the line on December the 25th. So both those dates are very important dates. And we're still not onto my pictures. December the 25th. Oh, I just wanted to show you that Jesus was in fact born on September the 30th. It's 280 days. It should say in here somewhere 40 weeks, 9 months, 6 days. It's 40 weeks exactly. Jesus was conceived on Christmas Eve at night, Christmas Day, and then he was born September the 29th at night, September the 30th on Tabernacles. Christmas Day is when Jesus left his rightful place. Tabernacles is when he came to tabernacle with us here on earth as a newborn baby. He was born on this day. He was not born on September the 11th. You can't conflate that um, with Jesus. Jesus is, it says in the Bible that Jesus was actually the creator. Jesus, God gave Jesus to create. Jesus is God. He created everything that we see. And he began that creation on September the 11th. So we don't want to even begin. And there's a group of people who are trying to say that Jesus was created, that there was no Jesus prior to the planet Earth, and that God created that part of him to, fulfill everything. That's simply not accurate. Jesus, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit have always existed. Always. So to state that Jesus was born on September the 11th, in my opinion, is to minimize who he is. He is God Almighty, 100% God, 100% man. He now, because of what he did for us, will live in an enhanced or, heavenly body, but now lives in a body for all eternity now because of what he did for us. What he did for us goes so much deeper than people realize. An almighty God who loves his creation that much could possibly even understand. We can barely wrap our minds around it, but it is huge. All right. Kevin looked this up. In 4 BC, Hanukkah, in fact, fell on December the 25th. I'm never going to get to that picture. I thought I had these things in line. All right. Now, Jacob, the Bible says, or they do the math, they figured up, was 77 years old when he ran from Esau. He ran from Esau because he was in fear for his life. He ran from Esau because he was going to be persecuted. The reason the Jews were put back into their land is because nobody wanted them in their land. They didn't do this great favor for the Jews at the time. They took them back to Israel. It was desolate. There was nothing going on. Nobody, some nomads were there. There was nothing there. And they began to flow back into there. And on November the 29th of 1947, now we know that Jacob was renamed Israel. God didn't do that by accident. He did that because we are to compare Israel with Jacob. Jacob left, and I surmise that Jacob left his brother Esau for fear of persecution. The Israelis have left the entire planet because of persecution. This is the largest group of people on the face of the earth that is being persecuted. We say in this country that it is a certain race that people know. The Jew, no culture, no people have been persecuted more than the Jews have been on the face of this earth. Now, they have been, and they were being attacked and everything else. So what did they do? They decided on November the 29th of 1947 to reestablish. Britain owned the land. And so the Palestinians did not own the land. Great Britain owned it. And Britain said, we'll just put the Jews back there. Just they're a thorn in everybody's side. They're having problems all around. And they're a peaceful people. It's not like they're going out picking fights. People are just literally out of nowhere attacking them, like they do, and it's beyond me as to why they do, but they do. There's an inherent hate for a Jew, and they attack them. So November the 29th, 1947, we compare that to Jacob leaving Esau because he's in fear. He leaves. Israel comes back to their land. They come back to their land. The land, out of nowhere, begins to flourish. It begins to rain just the right amount. The stuff starts to grow. It can feed them. Why do you think everybody wants? What baffles my mind is if the Palestinians would live cohesively with the Jews, they would benefit. But they don't. They want to kill the Jews off and take over the land because all this stuff is there. Do you not understand that the land is blessed by God, and that if you, in fact, were able to do what you want to do, the land would die the second the Jews were gone. The land is blessed because the Jews are there. Now, on November 29, 1947, the United Nations voted to partition the British mandate of Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. So they cut that portion out. The Great Britain created that section. And again, the area that the Jews now, the most hotly contested piece of real estate on the face of the earth, that little sliver that everybody wants a part of because God's blessings are on it. There was nomads there. They were barely there. It was really easy to move the Jews back there because there was nobody there. But then all of a sudden the land started to bring forth like crazy because the blessing of God was on it for the Jews. So we see that Jacob left Esau, I believe, November the 29th, not 1947, but November the 29th. Then Jacob marries Rachel and Leah. Marries Leah first, gives her 7 days, and 7 days later marries Rachel. I discovered this years ago, made videos about this 6 years ago. People were saying that Rachel had to wait 7 years. That's in fact not true. And we know this because it's reported that Rachel's barren. We don't know that Rachel's barren if Jacob is not having relations with Rachel. He is not going to have relations with Rachel unless he's married. And even Laban, the father of Leah and Rachel, says, give her 7 days. So 7 days later, he married Rachel. And what we see here is on May 14th, 1948, Jacob being called Israel, I believe is when uh, would be when Jacob married Leah. And 7 days later, on May 21st, he would have married Rachel as a date, if they match. In the Bible, Jacob was given the name Israel after wrestling with the angel of the Lord. Remember, he escapes Esau, and we see 5.5 months in between these two dates. In between, we see 5.5 months between November 29th of 1947 and May 14th of 1948, exactly 5.5 months. It's an odd number, right? But remember, he worked for Laban for, I think it said 30 days for a month. So there's a month of it right there. He left Esau and started to walk. He escaped. His mother told him to go find her brother, Laban, and you can stay there with him. And so he's walking, and then he goes to sleep and he dreams of, or he wrestles with God. Sorry, he wrestles with God. And is this not also the same time when he dreamed of the ladder, which I think Aaron over at God a Minute said the ladder that he dreamt of was probably the DNA strand of Jesus. And I thought that's pretty incredible. In with the blood of Christ we are saved, with the DNA strand of Jesus we are saved. And I thought that makes sense. But it appears as though between the time he left Esau, had wrestled with God, had the vision of the ladder, walked the rest of the way, worked for a month, it would appear that the time would fit very well from November the 29th when he left to May 14th when he married Leah, and May 21st when he married Rachel. And I will give, hold on. Now, this is what I thought I was going to get to next after all that other stuff. We find this in Revelation 11:3. And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,203 score days, 1,260 days, 1,260 days from November the 30th, November the 29th. We will come to May 13th of 1948. The last Israel will be 79 and 364 days old. One more day, the 365th day, they will be 80 years old. Now, the two witnesses must be present before Israel has to leave. The two witnesses must be present before during the time, the temple, but they have to be present 1,260 days to be killed in front of that temple. They have to, the Antichrist has to go in and proclaim himself to be God after the two witnesses are killed. The two witnesses are not going to allow such a thing. They have to die. And Satan feels so empowered at this time because he's killed these two crazy people with superhuman powers. It would be like Lex Luthor breaking out the kryptonite and taking out Superman. He would think that he was now um, super powerful because he just took out he just took out Superman. And Satan's going to feel the same way when he takes out these two superheroes. Um, but it's very clear. It says 1,260 days. A lot of stuff has to happen during that period of time. Again, May 13th, one day before they become 80 in 2028, subtract 1,260 days, like it just said in Revelation 11. We land on November the 30th of 2024. The temple has to be built during this time so that Satan can go in and proclaim himself to be God. The two witnesses must be here for 1,260 days. That must commence on November the 30th. We will not be here to see the two witnesses. We will not be here to see the temple built. Israel must flee 70 to 80 years, like we see in Psalms 90:10, must flee by May 13th of 2028. If I were going to warn anybody in Israel right now that is coming up on this date, go ahead and leave and get to Petra. That is where God will feed you and protect you. Go ahead and leave because you need to get to Petra as soon as possible because Satan is going to go into the temple and proclaim himself to be God. And then a remnant of you will be saved. The remnant that understands this will be saved. Flee. They will have to flee out. So a lot of stuff has to happen in those 1,260 days. And in the math that I'm looking at, November 30th is the last possible date that those two witnesses will they come on the scene the very day we leave? We have 13 days, 12 days. The day's almost finished. We have 12 days for before this math no longer works. And if we pass this, it's because we don't understand something, but we do understand the Bible very and abundantly clear. These two people have to come on the scene after we leave. These two people must be here. These two superhumans must be here for 1,260 days. The temple will be built after we are gone. The Antichrist will be revealed after we are gone. Satan will kill these two and go into the temple and proclaim himself to be God after 1,260 days. All right. Now, the two witnesses. I hear a lot of discussions back and forth, and I just want to put this out there because I truthfully, a part of me says it's just Enoch and Moses. I'm sorry. It's just Elijah and Moses. That's it. But then we have verses in the Bible. It is appointed unto man but wants to die. Moses died, but God took his bones and buried them himself. So my mind wrestles back and forth with this, and I've heard very good teachings on both sides. Just take the Bible at face value. It says it several times that it was Elijah and Moses, and that's the end of it. And who really cares? We're the bride. We won't be here anyway. Who really cares if it's Moses and Elijah, Moses and Enoch, or John, the Revelator? So we look. I think Enoch is out of the question, honestly, because even though Enoch did not die, he was a representative of the bride being caught away before the flood happened. Elijah is spoken of, and he did not die. He was taken away in a whirlwind as Elisha saw him go. So there's a, sorry, I don't even know where that came from. Elijah is a correct choice. It is a perfect candidate. I don't think anybody disputes whether or not it's Elisha. But then the dispute comes in. Is it Enoch? Is it Moses? Or is it John the Revelator? John the Revelator, Jesus spoke about him as being somebody, if he decided that he didn't die, We don't have any record. They think he died when in 98 AD. They think that he um, died of old age. He was the one apostle that was not killed for his faith. And there's a little bit of mystery around John the Revelator because we know John the Revelator is the one that shows up in heaven. A part of me thinks no, he cannot be alive still over these last 2,000 years. Although Jesus says, if I will it, it would be. And of course, he's God. If he willed it, it would be. Technically, he is because he shows up in heaven just after the mansion ceremony, the meal that we have, and the rods, and he witnesses us handing back the crowns. I hate to say we threw them at his feet like we weren't. I think we hand them back his crowns. I know the Bible says we toss them back at his feet, but in English that doesn't quite sound right. But we hand back the crowns to the one who rightfully deserves them. So in all reality, when he said that, if I decide that he never dies, it might just be that um, he was speaking to the fact that John would be one that would see everything 2,000 years into the future. And then we have Moses. He did die. It is appointed unto man yet one to die. So we have a good discussion about whether Moses is the one that comes back. But then we have the plain words of the Bible, the absolute plain words of the Bible. Here in Matthew, which speaks predominantly to the Jews, we see that after 6 days, that Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John. Notice the order: Peter, James, John. After 6 days, Moses and Elijah. It says Elias, but it's Elijah. So we have them witnessing, and when we see this written in all three Gospels and in Second Peter, when we see that Synoptic Gospels and Second Peter, when we see that, we have to believe that it was Moses and Elijah. You know. Now here, Peter, James, and John. Again, let me locate back here just to make sure. Peter, James, and John. Here in Mark, speaking predominantly to the tribulation saint, which shall not taste of death. There shall be some here which shall not taste of death. Again, that's kind of leans me towards John again because John was standing there. I don't know. John was right here, right there. Some that shall not taste death. That's where I get into a mental discussion with myself. The Bible clearly says it, but then I'm asked, why did Jesus say, if I decide John never dies, then what's it to you? And then we see here, after 6 days, Jesus taketh them up, Peter, James, and John. And we see again Elias, or Elijah and Moses. Now, here in Luke 9, let me enlarge. I forgot to enlarge last time. Luke, speaking predominantly to the bride, we see 8 days. We see John now is in the midst. He is no longer at the end. It's Peter. It was Peter, James, and John. Now John is somehow in the midst. And we've seen this midst spoken of several times in the Bible. And now we see this 8 days. 8 days. What happens 2 days prior to how did they get this wrong? They didn't get it wrong. This is speaking to the bride. Something about these 2 days spoken of in the Bible that we need to pay attention to. Two men. That wasn't spoken of in the other verses. Here it's called. It adds to it. It says two men, Moses and Elias. Again, Elijah. I think that this is important. I just can't. And I've heard discussions back and forth. I just want to put this out there if anybody has any ideas on this. Why is John found in the midst of Peter and James now when he was at the end? Which again, John represents, the Gospel of John represents the 144,000. Here he's in the midst. 8 days, two men, Moses and Elias. But Peter, and in this verse, only in Luke, we see this sleep. You don't see this in Matthew and Mark. I don't understand. Is it telling us that others will be asleep? But Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep. It doesn't name Peter James and John, but it says they that were with him were heavy with sleep. And when they were awake, they saw his glory and the two men. And again, it says two men that stood with him. You see what I'm saying? Something to study for sure. And this is where Jesus says in John 21:23, Jesus says, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is it to you? That right there really jogs your thought process. But then here, Moses and Elijah in all Gospels, Moses and Elijah. So the plain text of the Bible clearly says Moses and Elijah. Ah, I forgot to download. I got to download these pictures so that I can use one of them. I found all these on Facebook. Is this Facebook? I think it was Facebook. Incredible. The splendor that we are going to see when we get to heaven, the absolute splendor, and we will be covered by the cloak of Jesus Christ, and our sins will not be seen. You will not be seen for what we did. We are covered. So I was on this live today. It was actually pretty cool. Gary Gates hosted it because the host of Black Swan was not there. Um, Bob was there. He appears on Uptime all the time. I guess he doesn't have his own channel. Josh from End Times Talk was on there, and then Derek from uh, Bible Study with Derek was there. So yeah, I had a good time. Thanks, guys. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate that. Please go subscribe to these channels. I hadn't never found this channel before. Not so random. Not so random. Yes, 3.2 thousand subscribers. He's very well grounded in his faith, and of course, the baseline is Jesus did it all, and we did nothing, and that's what I look for. So I would always promote these channels. So Black Swan, and then of course, Not So Random is a good channel to subscribe to. You'll see Derek. He made a video. They were at a Chinese restaurant with his wife, and Derek was there with his wife, and they had a little fun there. Peter, I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep picking on Peter. I'm gonna keep picking on him. What are you doing right there? He's so animated when he does his videos. The guy's a secret genius, though. He finds some stuff. Peter, maybe you could work on the on what I just presented there and figure out the 6 days, 8 days, Moses and Elijah, or why Jesus thought it necessary to say if I decide to keep him alive and all that. That would be very interesting. I have a lot of fun on his YouTube when he does his lives. He's a lot of fun. These two are characters. They have a lot of fun together. So all right, I just wanted to promote his channel as well. And I'm sorry about that picture. It's just you're very animated, and there's very few chances to catch you like normal, like your wife. Not normal. Don't take that out. Like not like moving around. You're a very animated person, so you're a lot of fun to watch, and I love how the stuff you find and pick out. So all right. All right, let me get off here. Repo Man 64. Man, we're so close, within 12 days, I think, unless, my math is wrong. And always remember, and the thing that's always in the back of my mind, which I don't even want to consider, is Israel, in fact, is 80 until they're 81. And that brings us out a whole other year. Don't even want to comprehend that or consider that at all right now. I think that I think the Bible was pretty clear on the 70 and 80. It didn't say 70 and 80 until they're 81. It didn't say that. It's the 70 and 80. So I'm going to hang on to the next 12 days very intently. And besides that, think about what's going on. Does it really look like we're going to have to wait another year? Does it look like we're even going to make it to 2025 with everything we see happening? Does it even look like this new president will be back in office before it all hits the fan? I mean, they just told, everybody reported it, everybody ran out and reported it quickly, is that Biden just gave Ukraine permission to use the long range, and we all know they can't use long range. They don't have the satellite capabilities. It'll be us guiding those missiles in on Russia, and Russia knows that, so that will begin something catastrophic. And with everything we're watching, it just seems like when the news goes up, bad news happens, the earthquakes go up. It's the wildest thing. And when everybody saw that Trump was winning, the earthquakes just completely stopped. They just stopped. And I was like, how is this? How is this happening? It was like, okay, this is the calm before the storm. So go to a quiet place by yourself. Nobody needs to know. And you don't need to tell anybody except the Lord in your heart. We are going home very soon. I can't give you an exact date, but Amos 3:7 and Revelation 3:3 clearly state that if you're not watching, you won't know, and that I'm going to tell you. Go read them. It says it. And whatever we read in the Bible is fact, is fact. So that's kind of why I'm leaning toward is Moses and Elijah, just because it says it there. I don't think that we would have been misled. But then we also read that is appointed unto man but wants to die, and those two witnesses have to die. So call me confused on that. There's got to be a way to work that out right there. So anyway, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we will chat with you all again. I hope in heaven. I really hope in heaven very soon. Talk to you later.